everybody, how you doing? This is Bill Hoy with part 3 of Why is the World Such a Horrible Place? Because good intentioned people are not aligning their thoughts and behaviors with their good intentions. And my website is willhoy.com, willhoey.com, and I also have videos on Minds and BitChute, bhoy333, bhoey333. I'm also willhoy.com on library. Let's see. I also have a Natural Law podcast series on Anchor Podcast Radio. It's Natural Law. I guess you can type in Natural Law Podcast by Bill Hoy. You could look it up on Anchor. It's on Spotify. It's on, you can type it in any search engine. It should come up. And let's move into the presentation. So this is part 3 here. And part 1 and 2 really trying to hammer away at the cognitive dissonance and really trying to show how people's behaviors are not what they think they are. And I really tried to to show the dissonance in their thoughts. I mean, if you're having dissonance in your thoughts, if your thoughts are conflicting, your behaviors are going to be erratic. And folks, it's because of behaviors. It's because of behaviors, and it's because of our behaviors. And yes, the ruling class, if you want to call it that, it's their behaviors as well. But for the most part, we're the ones actually carrying out the actual on-the-ground immoral behaviors, either through willful ignorance, support of immoral behaviors, or actual immoral behaviors. Many of those along that spectrum. And once again, it's kind of like when people say Bush and Cheney should be thrown in jail for the Iraq War, and I think all prisons should be eliminated, but I wouldn't be crying for them if they were to go to a prison. But they really didn't do the behaviors, folks. Bush and Cheney didn't invade Iraq. They facilitated it, but they didn't invade Iraq. The soldiers did. They're the ones who carried out the behaviors. This is the point I'm trying to make. We're the ones actually carrying out the behaviors. So, yeah, natural law does apply to these individuals, but not directly. I really don't want to get into the whole idea of the ruling class really in these presentations. I'm really trying to keep the focus on, in a sense, the cliche, we the people. I'm trying to keep it focused on that, because we're the ones that carry out these behaviors, and without us carrying out these behaviors with our dissonant thoughts, where this horrible reality would not exist. And people just don't want to see it. People really think that they're good and they're moral. And I'm trying to really get people to see that you're really not. And it's all of us. It's all of us together. It's myself as well. I'm trying to move away from this. So I touched on something in this presentation that I just wanted to be clear that these facilitators, politicians and secret societies, royals, bankers, all those people, think tanks, CFR, presidential advisors, all these people, they're behaving immorally as well, but they're able to shield themselves from the 3D consequences of their facilitating evil behaviors, because we the people, there's that cliche again, are the ones that actually carry out the actual behaviors. And it's because of misguided, good intentioned people, people thinking that their thoughts are good, and not really looking and observing the reality, not objectively, because their thoughts are dissonant, so they're not objectively observing the reality, and then their misguided good intentions will lead to immoral behaviors, and their reality, they're not looking at the reality, and they're not actually observing their actual behaviors. And many people think that because they're not actually behaving in the killing of a person, they don't realize that the supporting of that is also immoral behavior. You support, everyone who supported the invasion of Iraq was supporting immoral behaviors, and there's culpability there. It wasn't like they were the soldiers. Actually, all these people, the the metaphorical cliche, putting your skin in the game. All these people that support these wars but don't want to, quote unquote, put their skin in the game, go over there themselves and put themselves in that danger, really is even worse. It's really even worse that the supporting of these wars and not actually fighting in them. The natural law consequences are even worse in the aggregate. But these people, even just supporting the Iraq invasion, is immoral, and that's going to go into the aggregate. Not to mention all these supporters of these wars claim that they honor these veterans, and they don't even want to talk about the veteran suicides. Not a word about that. But I'm trying to get people that even supporting these actual horrendous behaviors is a behavior, and that goes into the aggregate, and that gives us the horrible reality that we have. And then I'm going to show how the numbers work, a simple little thing about how the numbers work. And it's bad. So without further ado, let's just go right to the presentation. All right, so let's talk about the good intentioned people, of which I think constitutes most Americans and most people in the world. I'm going to read a bullet point from the column under what people think, and then I'm going to read the corresponding bullet point in the reality column. So let's get started. So what people think. First bullet point. Society must have rules. Therefore, politicians and their enforcers are necessary. It is all for good. Now let's go to reality. Having a ruling class will always result in violence and subjugation of others. It's unavoidable. Folks, I can't stress this enough. I mean, I understand people think that there has to be rules, and there are rules, folks. There's always rules. There are objective rules of morality, natural law. There's always rules. And unfortunately, these good intentioned people, the thought process going on in their mind with most good intentioned people I've talked to is, well, not everybody's going to follow the rules. And you know what? You're right. Not everybody's going to follow the rules. But what's most important is to have the bulk of people following objective rules of morality, and you're going to have a free society. And then with people who are rule breakers, as far as objective rules of morality, natural law, we can find a way to deal with them. And of course, there's always righteous self-defense in the face of an immediate attack. That's one way. But I just want to touch on how good intentioned people think that, we should have rules, and that's good. That's good, because we should have rules. They don't realize we do, and we don't need humans to make those rules. The rules are already in place for behavior, and
if we do not follow those rules, we get the results that we're having, which is this horrible world, which is what I'm trying to explain. And we're going to take this slide's going to go a step further to actual behaviors. And I'm going to show how these natural laws of objective morality work in the form of, as more people behave morally, that society will be more free. Not saying it's going to be the most wonderful society and there's going to be no violence at all, but I can tell you right now, if people started understanding natural law and aligning their behaviors with it, 90% of all violence would drop. As far as if the bulk of society was to understand it, 90% of all violence would end. I'd be willing to bet that's my prediction. Do you think we're ever going to see that? I don't know. I highly doubt that, folks. But good intentioned people think that, you got to have politicians and their enforcers, because we need people whose jobs it is to enforce the laws of good. But what people don't understand is you don't need to enforce laws of morality, because there already are laws of morality. And the only time any kind of what will be considered enforcement is optimum is in immediate self-defense. So I understand, everyone always thinks it's all for good. And this constitutes the bulk of society. And unfortunately, the reality is that having a ruling class will always result in violence, lots of it, and subjugation of others. Because good people's intentions are to have this entity, the politicians and their enforcers, to enforce laws that promote good behavior. But you're always going to get subjective interpretations of that, unless people know and understand objective morality. And if people know and understand objective morality, there won't even be a ruling class. But it's unavoidable to have violence and subjugation if you're going to have a ruling class, if you're going to have people who it is their jobs to enforce good laws. Because true laws of morality, like I said, don't need to be enforced. I really wanted to say something. I lost it. Oh, I had it. I was going to nail it. But I'm just going to move on. Maybe it'll come back to me, because a lot of these are very similar in categories, but I really had it. Oh, I was going to kill it. So let's go back to the next bullet point and what people think. It is a good thing to mass slaughter animals for food. We need to eat. See, the prevailing wisdom with most people is, if you're going to kill an animal, you should kill it to eat, and kill it, so you can preserve your survival and the survival of your family. And once again, sounds good, sounds logical, but unfortunately, there's the reality. Excuse me. So, to the reality bullet point. Killing animals for food is worse. How about that? Bet you never thought that, did you? Because it is species domination. See, folks, when we kill living things, and then living things as far as sentient beings, not talking about plants. Okay, a lot of people try to say, well, if you kill a plant, you're you're killing a sentient being, or you're causing harm or whatever. So we should just kill everything. And if you can't kill anything, just kill everything. But that's not true. Okay, plants, actually, historically, plants were really all supposed to be, I think they're called perennials, where they don't grow then die. They stay like trees. They bear their fruits, and then they're done for the winter, and then the next year they bear fruits again, and that kind of stuff. And plants really weren't meant to be really killed. It's modern agriculture. When I say modern, I'm going back to, hundreds of years back, the first starting of modern agrarian societies started the whole idea that, like, corn grows, gives you the corn, and then the plant dies. But when you pull corn off the cornstalk, the corn doesn't start screaming in pain. The corn doesn't, the corn is not, it's not sentient. It doesn't have a brain. It doesn't have a heart as far as like a sentient being does. So many people are erroneous in their thinking, saying, well, you're killing a plant too. No, you pull carrots out of the ground, they're not going to scream in agony. They're not going to bleed. So killing animals for food is worse because it's species domination. It's the complete devaluing of a sentient life. And people don't understand that translates into our behavior, and it translates to how we treat our own species. And it's very significant. This is very significant. And I know I talk about this. I don't know if I ever published my book or whatever. I talk about it in it. I might, this is pretty much my book here. But I talk about this, and I try to make it clear to people. I'm not trying to promote veganism or vegetarianism. I'm not trying to trick you into becoming a vegan or something. I'm trying to point out the fact that when it comes to eating animals, killing animals and eating them for food, first thing, it's immoral because you're harming a sentient being. But I'm trying to bring this to people, to our good intentioned people out there, that this practice, the suffering from this practice translates to us. The whole idea of these animals are lesser species, so we can kill them and eat them, translates to how we treat other human beings, and other human beings who we devalue. I can't stress this enough. And all I ask is people to just consider this. Look into it and consider it. I never said stop eating meat, especially immediately or anything like that. I suggest, I think in order to get to complete consciousness, we humans have to stop eating the flesh of animals and fish. Folks, I'm not perfect. I still eat small, tiny little fish like anchovies and small little clams and stuff like that. I don't eat any land-based animals, but I'm not perfect either. So let's just move on. So I just want to go back just 1 second. That species domination is very, very, very significant. Very significant. When you kill an animal, whether you kill it or not, and then consume it, that is complete species domination. Not to mention the fact that most of us Americans are not even slaughtering our own animals. I mean, if you're going to eat the flesh of an animal, you should at least have the courage to kill the animal yourself. That's another disconnection right there. Another big disconnection. I mean, I could do I'm probably going to have to do a whole segment series on this, but I don't want to take forever. So let's go to the next bullet point. So what people think. I, meaning this is just, your regular good intentioned person. I, not meaning me. A person, your good intentioned person will say, I will not consider anything that conflicts with my worldview. I already know everything I need to know. Reality. This is the pathway to absolute tyranny. Knowledge is infinite. This will lead to the extinction of humans. Folks, we humans are developed to have massive amounts of knowledge. Massive amounts of knowledge. And I talk about this in my writings. I talk about the fact that I've been wising up for about 7 years, and I think I maybe have about a terabyte of data in my head. Maybe like good knowledge, good solid knowledge, stuff like that. A terabyte in my head. There's people out there with multiple terabytes, 10 plus terabytes in their head of knowledge. I have 1 terabyte, and I make the average good intentioned person look like an absolute babbling idiot. That's really bad, folks. That's really bad. That is nothing I'm proud about. Every one of us should have terabytes of good solid knowledge in our head of who we humans are, where we come from, how do our bodies work, how how does the homeostasis of our bodies work, what is mitochondria, our cells, how do they work together, how do our organs work together, how do they stay autonomous but also work together, what is nature, what is really going on this planet, how do we think? People don't know jack shit, man. I have barely maybe a terabyte of knowledge in my head, I'm guessing. And I make the average person look like a stone cold, dumber than a sack of bricks. That's bad. We humans are supposed to be knowledgeable. We humans are supposed to not stop ourselves from thinking. People think, oh, natural law. Well, natural law is stopping from thinking because all you have to do is know it is natural law, and that's it. Nothing more to know. No, that's not what natural law is. Natural law is a lifetime of observance and discovery. Natural law is infinite. Knowledge is infinite. We humans have the capability to have infinite knowledge. How's that going? It's in the toilet. So let's go to what people think. Next bullet point. Blind obedience to the correct authority is good behavior. To the correct authority. We're not going to blindly obey those Chinese, the Chinese government, but we'll blindly obey the American government. You're wrong on both accounts. Reality. This belief is incredibly destructive and immoral. Just look at the atrocities of the 20th century, folks. The worst thing you can teach a kid is blind obedience to the correct authority. Teaching your kid, well, don't listen to your neighbor, he's a jerk, but you do whatever mommy and daddy say, and you don't talk back. The worst thing you can teach a kid, man. Worst thing you can teach a kid. It's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, blind obedience flies in the face of humanity. We're going to get into that. You're not even human if you don't think. You're not even human if you don't think for yourself. I think I covered this. Let's move on. Next bullet point, what people think. This is what a good intention person's saying to themselves. I want to use the power of government to do good things in the world. People have to be controlled. That's a very common belief among our good intention people. And once again, what are their intentions are good. Their intentions are good. They want to use that power to do good things. You know, they don't want to use that power to just go from country to country and kill people. But unfortunately, there's the reality. Bullet point. Sounds good. Yes, it does. Sounds good. This will never work. The only chance, I added that, of this may work only as a step down due to increased enlightenment. I mean, maybe you could take this model as kind of like a step down if we were going to start getting more enlightened about objective morality, and that reflected in our behaviors and then reflected in the behaviors of people who represent the idea of government. And we were to step down to say, for example, limited government, like of the founders of America. And I don't know. You see that happening? I mean, even something like that would take masses of people to start learning and understanding natural law and objective morality. Good luck. Don't hold your breath. Folks, I just want to add this. I just want to add that I really think, based on my studies, that we humans, Americans, are headed for a very near future that is just going to be so unimaginably horrible. So unimaginably horrible. I mean, I really see people eating each other in the streets. There's historical examples of that. I'd be willing to bet people are eating each other in the streets of Yemen. And we Americans have our hands in that. Starving them people, blockading them people, bombing them, supporting other groups, regimes like Saudi Arabia that are bombing them and killing them, blockading them. I bet those people are eating each other in the streets, man. It's awful. Just makes me want to cry. It really does. To think that my name's on that shit pisses me off. Makes me want to snap. But, and how many people even really care? How many people even really care? Let's stick with the lesson. So it's good, you know, these good intentioned people. Hey, I want to use government to do good things, but that's really, I would say that's cognitive dissonance, because you can never truly objectively use the idea of human rulership over other humans to do good, because government in itself is evil. Government in itself is contradictory to all that is good and moral. And many people will still insist, oh, we can use this for good. Once again, like I said, maybe only as a step down to true enlightenment. But if people think that they're just going to use the power of government to do good things and not actually change themselves and their behaviors, we'll all be extinct very soon. Next bullet point, taxation is necessary. Well, this is what people think. Taxation is necessary. Society could not survive without it. We will use the money for good things. Oh, isn't that sweet? And then there's the reality of that. Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds nice. The system must be voluntary because taxation is not optional. So, I mean, if it's a voluntary system, you can use the money for good things. It's not too terrible. I don't see anything wrong with people contributing money to actually something that has a benefit in society and that they want to contribute to, but that's not what taxation is. And once again, that's more cognitive dissonance. You know, it's okay, we're going to force you at gunpoint to surrender your hard-earned money, but you know, we'll use it for good. And no, because you can't commit an evil to do a good. You know, that's ridiculous. It's absolute nonsense. But I will say this, the whole idea of society could not survive without it, that is a very strong possibility. Especially local societies. If all of a sudden taxation ended, our local townships, counties, it'd be chaos. Be chaos. You know what? I'll take it though. Don't get me wrong. I'll take it. But you would see serious collapses of society. Absolutely. Absolutely it would happen. Absolutely. But I can tell you this, we continue all these systems, our whole entire planet's going to collapse. It's not just going to be societal collapses. Moving on. So now we're back to the second list of what they really are, right? And then we're going to go to the actual behaviors of what actually happens. And so I'll read from the what they really are column. Okay, I just had to pause for a second. All right, we're going to go with what they really are. Now this was the same list as I just previously went over, the second list, and now this is the first list, and we're going to go to the actual behaviors, from what they really are to the actual behaviors. I'm trying to get you people to see that this is about behaviors. It's about thoughts and behaviors. This is where it all starts, our thoughts and our behaviors. This is how we get out of this mess. This is why the world's a horrible place, and this is how we get out of it. So, first bullet point, what they really are. Having a ruling class will always result in violence and subjugation of others. It is unavoidable, like I said. So, to the actual behaviors. What are the actual behaviors of this violence and subjugation of others? This unavoidable ends of a ruling class? Well, killing people, caging people, jail, preventing moral free will choices, silencing dissent, starvation of others, Yemen. Preventing moral free will choices, masks, vaccine laws. Well, they're orders right now. I mean, mass and social distancing are orders, and vaccines will soon be laws. They'll soon be a law. And I'm sure masks and social distancing will also be a laws soon. Preventing moral free will choices. Somebody wanting to ingest like, say, heroin or cocaine into their body. I think that both behaviors are disgusting, but everyone has a moral free will choice. They're not harming anybody by ingesting heroin or cocaine into their body or harming themselves. But if that's what they want to do, that's their choice. Caging people, putting them in jail. There shouldn't be any jails, folks. Shouldn't be any jails. Once again, good intentioned people, what do they think? Well, we need to have a ruling class because that ruling class needs to be in charge of taking people who break rules and then punishing them and putting them in cages. And that's not the way to do it. The real truth is people who commit crimes against objective morality within a society have to be dealt with by that society. As far as the society itself should be the ones that have to handle that because they're the ones that created it. We create our own reality, folks, by our thoughts and our behaviors. And when people violate objective morality, it has to be looked at. What are they thinking? Why are their behaviors like that? And if someone is killing people and trying to cage people and prevent moral free will choices, there's always righteous self-defense, folks. Folks, any person who attacks another person surrenders their right to not be harmed. Always remember that. Never initiate harm. Self-defense is not the initiation of harm. It's not the initiation. It's like violence. What is violence? Violence is to violate someone's rights. Self-defense is the use of force, actual energy to defend yourself. And that's not, once again, that's not playing word games. Violence, violate rights, violence. So there you have it. Those are your actual behaviors. Killing people. Folks, we're participating in and supporting killing people, starving people. 500,000 Iraqi children, folks, starved during the sanctions of the Bill Clinton years. And I don't care who's the president at the time. Look at Yemen. We were starving them out under the Obama administration, and it went right to Trump, and it's going to go right to Biden. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who the person in the White House is. It's our behaviors. It's their behaviors too, but it's our behaviors. We're the ones that really make the reality, because once again, as the bulk of a society behaves, thinks, and behaves in a certain way, that society will reflect those behaviors, because it's behaviors that bring the reality into manifestation. So let's go back to what they really are. And I just thought of something. I'm looking at silencing dissent, and we've got plenty of that, right? With all the censorship, got plenty of that, folks. So back to what they really are. Bullet point: killing animals for food is worse because it's species domination. So what's the actual behaviors of this? To the bullet point: killing an animal that does not want to die. So you're killing an animal that does not want to die. Folks, you can tell yourself, good intentioned people will always try to tell themselves, no, they give themselves to us. Folks, no, they don't. No, they don't. It's not true. It's a lie. Humans made that up. Probably the meat industry made it up. But back to actual behaviors. So killing an animal that does not want to die, then consuming the animal that suffered horribly. Okay, so that's the actual behaviors. The actual behavior is the killing of an animal, whether you're doing it or not, which, once again, really the truth is, if you're going to eat an animal, you should have the courage, at least have the courage to kill it, or at least kill it yourself, which is immoral, but at least you have the courage to kill it yourself. But an animal is being killed that does not want to die, and then that animal is being consumed, and the suffering of that animal is being consumed. It's immense suffering, folks. And that suffering comes back to us. Those are the actual behaviors. And folks, I understand if I had nothing to eat and I was in a survival situation, if there was an animal I could kill to eat and maybe prolong my life a little bit to find another way to sustain myself, I'd do it. Okay? I just want to be clear about that. I've mentioned that before. But once again, I've also mentioned this. If all there is animals for us to eat, I don't think humans or animals will be around very long. Because even if, it's just look at what's happening now. We're getting the natural law consequences from the mass slaughtering of animals and eating animals, consuming animals as a regular dietary practice. I mean, look at so many people in America will eat animal meat 3 times a day easily, not even think about it. I used to eat it 3 times a day, not even think about it, not think a second about it. My aunt was a pig farmer. It's a pig farmer, and take them, we'd go down there and they'd take on, they would take on the market and meat would come back and we would have sausages and everything, man. Didn't think 1 second about it. Didn't think 1 second about all the suffering of those animals. Never even occurred to me. That's how desensitized and immoral I was. And I suffered for it, and other aggregate of society is suffering for it. It's immense suffering, folks. Immense suffering. Something like, I read one statistic, something like 58 billion chickens killed a year for consumption. That's insane. It's insane. So, once again, all I ask is people look into this. I know that this is usually, once people see this, they're done. All I ask is that people look into this. Maybe try to cut out a meal a day. What's the big deal? You can't cut a meal a day. You can't cut a meal of animal meat a day out of your diet. Really? I mean, if anything, do it for your health. All right. Back to what they really are. Bullet point. This is the pathway to absolute tyranny. Knowledge is infinite. This will lead to the extinction of humans. So, being willfully ignorant is a pathway to absolute tyranny. You want to get to absolute tyranny? So, being willfully ignorant will do it. Being willfully ignorant will get you there. Make no bones about it. Just look at all the famous sayings of all the scumbags like, I forget the guy's name. Adolf Hitler has some, and Goering's, and Joseph, I think it's Joseph Goebbels. I forget some of their names, but just look at some of their sayings. Tell people a lie enough, it becomes the truth. Willful ignorance, right there, man. There you go. You got a Holocaust. So, what are the actual behaviors of that? What are the actual behaviors? And I touched a little bit about this in the last slide. Refusing to be human. Humans are supposed to increase their knowledge. Okay? You're refusing to be human. If you're willfully ignorant, you're absolutely refusing to be human. Plain and simple, man. You are refusing to be human. Because once again, humans are supposed to search for good, solid knowledge infinitely. Yeah, right. Try not to laugh, for those of you who understand. Try not to cry, actually. So next bullet point, and once again, folks, I just want to be clear. I was here. I was one of these good intention people. Okay, I was here. I mentioned a little bit about that. I was here. So I mean, I know where people are at. So what they really are, bullet point. This belief is incredibly destructive and immoral. Just look at the atrocities of the 20th century. Okay, that was the belief in obedience as a virtue. Okay, that was obedience as a virtue. Teaching kids obedience as a virtue. A great idea. People don't even know. Good intentioned people. I mean, people think, hey, it's good to be obedient to a proper authority. I'm your parent. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm gonna be good for you. I'm gonna be good to you. And you don't realize what you're setting your kid up for. You don't realize what you're setting your kid up for. You're setting your kid up for to basically, and we'll get to the actual behaviors. Let's do what the actual behaviors are. You're reducing themselves, the parents, and their kids to the mental capabilities of stupid animals. You don't even realize that. You're dumbing yourself and your kid down to basically a dumb, stupid animal, like a stupid animal, not even a smart animal, like a dumb animal. I mean, this is how dumbed down we are. I can't even stress it. I remember when I first started wising up, hearing about how stupid people were, and I started noticing it a little bit. But then I started realizing, all these stupid people are going to take me down with them. That's when I started looking more into it. And when I started looking more into it, it just got more and more depressing, because I started really realizing just how unbelievably dumbed down people are. Like I told you with the terabyte of knowledge. I got a measly little terabyte of knowledge, I would say, I guess. Maybe a little more. I don't know. But that's nothing compared to your people in this world with vast amounts of knowledge. And when I compare myself to the average Joe, it's a joke. I mean, I look like an absolute unbelievable genius compared to these people. And it's terrible. It's terrible. It's not nothing that I take pride in. I want everyone to have multiple terabytes of good, solid knowledge. I want everyone, because that's what we humans are supposed to be. But the whole obedience as a virtue, good or bad, that's all. That's all it is. It's that simple. You're either good or you're bad. Plain and simple. And people say, well, natural law, don't initiate harm to another sentient being. That's simple too. Well, yes, but that's different. That's different because that universal law is observable and discoverable and infinite. Whereas good or bad, that's all, is just, it's finite and it's extremely limiting. Big difference between the two, folks. Big difference. Let's look at the atrocities of the 20th century. I'll tell you your difference there. Just following orders while they're bulldozing bodies into the dishes. Hey, I got mouths to feed, man. That's where that leads. That's where obedience as a virtue leads. Knowledge and natural law doesn't lead there. Doesn't lead there. Leads us far away from that. So once again, we're at the what they really are, this bullet point. And this is about, having a ruling class. I forget actually what this bullet point was. Maybe this is not going to work, but we'll just roll with it. Oh, you know what it was? I know what it was. It was people wanting to control people. Okay, people need to be controlled for good, of course. I'll use government. The whole idea. Oh, I'll use government to do good things, and folks, that's most of your people in this country and this world, and most of your good intention people. We'll use government to do good things, and I mean, I see that working possibly as a step down to increased enlightenment, but not as something that can last. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's cognitive dissonance. And the whole idea, well, people say, well, the people will be in charge. How about nobody be in charge? How about we all just be in charge of ourselves and let the universe will take over, and the universe will give us our reality. That doesn't mean we just sit back, kick back, and I know natural law now. All right, time to kick back. Hey, let's check out the game. It doesn't work like that. Doesn't mean our challenges are over. Our challenges are just beginning. Challenges are just beginning, folks. Our challenges are just beginning, man. I couldn't even, I don't have enough time in the world to go over all our challenges, man. So let's go to the actual behaviors of this never working. Okay, let's show the behaviors of this never working, how this never works. To the bullet point. Forcing people with the threat of violence against their will to conform with your dictates that you think are good. I'm talking to your good intention people. I'm talking directly to you. I'll say it once more. I'm forcing people with the threat of violence against their will to conform with your dictates that you think are good. That's the actual behaviors. That's the actual behaviors. Well, this is good, but I'm still going to force you. And once again, cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance. Behaviors not matching what you say you want. Thoughts, intentions, behaviors not matching up. Thoughts not matching up. Thoughts about cognitive dissonance is having two contrasting thoughts about a similar concept. And that's what you're engaging in there. And your I covered this. You're forcing someone with the threat of violence, which is immoral, to do something moral, what you think is moral. And once again, people say, well, we can force people with the threat of violence to follow natural law, but that doesn't work. That's like a paradox. You know, that's like a it's like a positive and a negative. You can't, what am I trying to say? You can't be moral and immoral at the same time. You can't be moral and immoral at the same time. It doesn't work. You can't do something immoral to force somebody to do something moral. That doesn't work. And if people started really understanding natural law, we'd be stepping down from that. We'd be stepping down. We'd be moving away from that, like the step down that I referred to. The step down, which is what we're on, the bullet point. You know, maybe as a step down, but that's not going to work. And will not work once again because universally, philosophically, it's like, what is that called? It's like logic and reasoning. A union B, A union B, union C, A intersect B. You can't do something immoral once again and to get something moral. That will never work in the universe. It will never work in the universe, ever. Once again, maybe as a step down, hey, we're moving away from this, but it's never going to work. So back to what they really are. Taxation, the original list, bullet point from the list was, taxation's good, that we can use it to do good things. And of course, sounds good. The system must be voluntary. I mean, if it's voluntary, it's not taxation. But, taxation is not optional. So what are the actual behaviors? What are the actual behaviors? You're forcing people with the threat of violence to contribute the fruits of their labor that you have no right to do. Once again, you're doing something immoral to do something moral. And it doesn't work. It never will work. It never will work. Once again, maybe as a step down, but it's never going to work as any sound long-term system, because once again, as a society in the aggregate, more people behaves more immoral, that society will become more enslaved. And it's the laws. These are universal, inherent, immutable, unalienable laws. They're eternal. They don't change. You can't alter them. You do something, you're going to get a result. You behave immorally, your result is going to be slavery. You behave immorally, your result as a society behaves more immoral, that the result for that society will be slavery. As individuals do that, you're creating the potential threat for a society to descend into slavery. That's why if individuals are behaving immorally in a society, it's up to that society to stop that. Say, look, no, you're not going to do this, because we do not want to descend into slavery. We do not want your ideas getting out. If your ideas involve harming people and stealing from people and committing crimes against people, crimes against objective morality. So let's move on. So how behaviors work? Well, it's pretty simple, folks. Once again, not that if people all started knowing and understanding natural law and aligning their behaviors to it, all our problems would be over. Not even close. Not even close. Problems are just beginning. Our problems are just beginning, folks. And if we don't start wising up, we may not be able to turn the tide. That's being optimistic. How behaviors work. Okay, we got I put them in red because they're, I don't know, say they're communists. So the red circle equals 10 million immoral people. And, what are these immoral people? What do they, what's their behaviors? What are their behaviors? They support violence. They support species domination. They're willfully ignorant. They teach kids blind obedience, and they want to control others. For good, of course. For good, of course. Okay? And each of those circles is 10 million people. So you got, 120 million people here. And now this one small little blue circle with all the red circles have a smiley face because they're the good intentioned people. Most of them are good intentioned people thinking that they're doing something great. And as long as their lives are going well, everything's fine. But this circle, the blue circle, has a sad face, because this blue circle sees that this society is going to absolutely collapse, and more than likely, it's very possible that no one will survive the collapse, because the collapse will not just be societal, it will be environmental as well. It'll be a combination. Once again, folks, this is all already happening, by the way, just in case you think I'm predicting something. I'm telling you what's going on right now. Our society's already collapsing. A lot of people think it's good. Oh, yay, the whole power structure is going to collapse. Well, not if people are not ready for that. Not if people are not ready for that. If people are not ready for that, do you even realize how many people actually depend on government? I'm not even talking about welfare. For so many things. Employment, so many things. Medicare, Medicaid, other kinds of benefits. There isn't a person alive that doesn't depend on government in some way here in America, with some exceptions, of course. I mean, if this system was to collapse, people will be eating each other in the streets, man. Once, like I've said, like Yemen, I'd be willing to bet. Unbelievable. So here's the sad face, because they know that all these smiley faces have no idea what's coming at them. Got no idea what's coming at them. They're going to be hit it's going to be like a tornado in the night, man. People are going to lose their minds if this all collapses. I can tell you right now, the power structure, until they're ready for it to collapse, will print as much money as they can to keep this all going, and they'll be continuing their climate engineering programs to try to keep nature at bay for a little bit more. That's not going to last. That climate engineering needs to end, folks. It needs to end. And when it needs to end, we need to face the consequences, and they could be real bad. But if the climate engineering problems don't end, there'll be no life on Earth. Unless, once again, we get quote unquote lucky and this all collapses and climate engineering programs stop. But once again, our challenges will not be over there. We'll be living in a nightmare. And count all your red smiley faces here. Your 120 million people here. Count your red smiley faces. They're not going to be ready for that. They're not going to be ready for that at all. They're going to lose it. And guess what? These red smiley faces are going to be coming to your house. Hey, you got food? Oh, you don't have any food? Well, you know what? We'll eat you. oh my God, it's going to be horrible. If this is the scenario that is coming, which, so many people say, oh, you're extreme, it's never going to happen. You start getting knowledge because it absolutely can happen. Just kills me. Just kills me. But okay. So we got our blue sad face, which is 3 million mostly moral people. I said mostly because these people are working towards becoming more moral. They're not wanting anything to do with government. They're starting to change their diets and move away from the consumption of animal meats and like here we go. I'll go right to the bullet points. They're opposing violence of government and militaries and the compartmentalized structure of police bound to blind obedience to the politicians and the definition of the police job as enforcing laws no matter how immoral the law is. So they favor righteous self-defense in the face of an immediate attack, minimize harm to animals, trying their best, does not support species domination, starting to understand the species domination ideology and looking to move away from that, the domination over nature and other animals. Realizing that obedience is not a virtue, it's a curse. Blind obedience is a curse. And they're learning objective morality and beginning to act upon the knowledge. And I say 3 million mostly moral people, and sometimes I wonder, proportionately 3 million to 120 million. I'd be willing to bet we're lucky if here in the United States, 330 million, maybe we got, not counting kids really, but you can count kids, I guess, because you can teach them this objective morality. But we'll just say 330 million, there may be only 3 million out of the 330 million. It might be even worse. And once again, I said mostly moral. First thing, no one's ever perfect. No one's ever, only the Creator is perfect. So just want to be clear about that. But mostly moral people are really trying to make a really strong effort to move away from the destruction of our species and others and the planet. And there you have it. That's how behaviors work, folks. When 120 million people behave in the way that they're behaving, and only 3 million people are trying not to behave like that, you're going to have a society that's going to be enslaved, because all of these 120 million want slavery. They want to be immoral, and they think that they're good. Unfortunately, their thoughts are messed up. They think that they're good, and they're behaving. Unfortunately, their behaviors are creating the reality. And that's how it works, folks. If all these if all these reds were blue, it would be a moral society, it'd be non-enslaved. But because they're all red and they're immoral people, it's an enslaved society. And that is point blank how it works. People's thoughts are contradictory. Their behaviors contradict their good intentions. And you get immoral behaviors, and the behaviors bring about the manifestation of slavery. Immoral behaviors bring out the manifestation of slavery. And as more people behave immorally, that society becomes more enslaved. And when you got 120 million versus 3 million, the immoral enslavement will win out. That's how the universe works. That's how the universe passes judgment for non-compliance with natural law. When people don't comply with natural law, I won't say comply, when people don't align, when people don't understand and then align their behaviors with natural law, that's what you get. At least try. That's what you get. That is exactly how it works. That's actually how the whole thing works in a society. We have to stop. We have to start aligning our thoughts, and we have to stop behaving immorally. We have to. That is the only way out of this. It's the only way out of this. I cannot stress this enough. I cannot stress this enough. Probably just gonna be done. I mean, how much more can I explain it? I don't know. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna keep trying. Sometimes I just don't even want to bother. I really don't. I haven't even been doing this for a long time, and I'm already ready to quit. Got guys out there that have been doing this for 15, 30, 60 years, and they're still hanging in there. So if they're going to hang in there, I'm going to hang in there. But I just really want to quit. But that's it. It's behaviors, folks. Behaviors come from thoughts, and the behaviors bring slavery to a society, whether you want to accept it or not, whether you want to, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, whether you want to think things are going great or not. You're going to see soon. Good intention people, man. Come on, good intention people. Start truly aligning your good intentions with your behaviors. Start learning what true morality is. We could change this. We got to try. I mean, folks, good intention people, you're going to wait until everything collapses. It's going to be too late. I mean, never too late, but it's going to be too late to try to maintain something where people can have some kind of quality of life. All right. That'll be it for this slide.
Okay, folks, so there you had it. There's the presentation. That's the final. That's part 3. And that's natural law, folks. That's how natural law works. I put up on the last slide how behaviors work. That's how natural law works. But I want really people to understand. A lot of people kind of get caught up, oh, natural law, that's a religion and all that stuff. So I'm trying to just keep the whole thing focused on how our behaviors work. The dissonant thoughts to our behaviors. And here you have it. Here you have it. So let's just take one more little cursory look at this. On the red side, these are actual behaviors. Supporting violence is an actual behavior. Whether you're actually performing the violence or not, supporting violence is an actual behavior. Supporting species domination, that is an actual behavior. I've tried to point that out in these last slides, and I'm going to keep hammering this. Being willfully ignorant, that's an actual behavior. That's an actual behavior. Teaching kids blind obedience, those are actual behaviors. Now, I put want to control others, and that's sort of a behavior, but the actual controlling of others is really the behavior. But wanting to control others and supporting the control of others, first thing, that's fear-based. Always remember that. You could go to my Natural Law as a Solution. I talk about that, how the belief in wanting this entity of human rulership to control others, because you're afraid of what other people are going to do, that's fear. You know, the whole idea of human rulership is based in fear. And where natural law is based in courage. Okay, I'll talk about that in my natural law as a solution. So these are actual behaviors, and these are behaviors by millions of people, each circle representing 10 million people. So in this particular society, you had 120 million people versus 3 million mostly moral people whose behaviors were they were opposing the violence. That's a behavior. They favor righteous self-defense. That's an actual behavior. That's an actual behavior. They're behaving that. When you take your thoughts and you say, I favor righteous self-defense, and you take that into the world, and your behaviors will be in line with that. Not saying you're going to be fearless. Not saying you're not going to be scared of anything. You know, I'm still working out all these fears myself. You know, it's tough. It's tough when you're one of these 3 million mostly people. That's very generous, but proportionately very generous. 3 million mostly moral people. Once again, this is just a supposed society, folks. This is a society of 123 million people. Let's just say, okay, that it was a supposed society. I just want to make that very clear. I'm sure you could figure that out, but just in case people didn't, that's what it was. But these are behaviors. Minimizing harm to animals, that's a behavior. That's a behavior. Cutting down your meat meals, that's a behavior. Not supporting species domination, that's a behavior. That's a behavior when you actually act it out into the world. Like, same with favoring righteous self-defense. That doesn't mean, you go out to the store and somebody calls you a name, you beat them up. That's not what it means. Okay? That's not what it means. It means knowing and understanding that no one has the right to engage in violence against you. And that if somebody engages in violence against you, you have the right to defend yourself, and the behavior and actual behavior will be not supporting what enforcers of these politicians are doing to people for mundane, these laws that they make up. In the case of Atlas Gym guys in New Jersey, getting thrown in a cage, kidnapped and thrown in a cage, arrested is the euphemism, for just wanting to run a moral business. You actually oppose that stuff, and you also know and understand in your mind that those Atlas Gym guys had the right to defend themselves, with up to and including deadly force. And I can tell you this, if that was in Texas, it would have been a bit of a different situation. I'm not saying that there would have been, a firefight or anything, but it would have been a little bit different. Once again, that was in New Jersey. And, in New Jersey, it's bad here, man. Real bad. I'm from New Jersey. But, once again, I just want to get people to understand that, these are behaviors. People behaving. Obedience is not a virtue. People behaving like that, not teaching that to their kids, not supporting blind obedience to a ruling class, and learning objective morality. These are behaviors. You're learning something. That's a behavior. And acting upon the knowledge. That's a behavior. So these are behaviors. The reason why our world is the horrible place that it is because of behaviors, period, end of story. And now I'm going to wrap this up, and that is the end of my 3-part series. I'm hoping to get a book out about this, not that anybody cares, but once again, that's my computer talking to me. I had an update. But that's it, and this is Bill Hoy signing out. WillHoy.com is my website, and that's all. If you saw anything in the series that you think needs more elaboration, like what in the case of that little chart that I put up in the first at the end of the first part, that was just all that was just to show two lines moving together in a kind of a same way in a positive relationship between moral behavior and freedom. That's it. The whole rest of the chart really means nothing. And you know what? If you're good at statistics, I mean, I'm trying to learn. I'm brushing up on my math and my statistics, but I don't have time. I'm doing so much work. If you think you can do better, by all means, please put it out there, man. Put it out there. You think you can do better? Put it out there. Don't sit here. I mean, you want to criticize me? Go ahead. But I mean, why don't you put it out there? Show me up, man. That's what we need. All right, that's it.